On a winter afternoon, as the sun sparkled on the snow, family members gathered as usual at the colonial mansion in Greenwich's upscale neighborhood. Beyond the imposing gates facing Round Hill Road stretched meticulously maintained gardens, where accumulated snow created an elegant winter scene. As the warmth from the fireplace spread throughout the room, Richard Anderson listened to his grandson Ethan's piano performance. "That was wonderful, Ethan. Your rendition of Bach was simply exquisite." Richard placed his hand gently on his grandson's shoulder, a warm smile crossing his face. Having built Greenwich's leading real estate company from the ground up, he remained a diligent executive who still visited the office every morning. His gaze held both the warmth of a family man and the sharp acumen of a successful businessman. "Thank you, Grandpa. I'm playing this piece for next week's recital." Ethan smiled back shyly. The honor student at Greenwich Academy possessed a maturity and politeness beyond his 12 years. He had adapted quickly to new environments and was well respected by his classmates. His piano talent, in particular, had earned high praise from those around him. Sarah Mitchell watched the scene with gentle eyes. As a senior accountant at a major accounting firm, she had raised her son Ethan admirably as a single mother. After her divorce 10 years ago, she had moved forward with determination. Though reserved by nature, she possessed an inner strength that was unmistakable. Living with her son in a modern townhouse nearby, she made sure to visit this family home every weekend, cherishing time with her family. "Sarah, look at this photo. It's from our brunch," Jennifer Cooper called out from the antique sofa in the living room. Sarah's sister, an Instagram influencer with 100,000 followers, was eagerly showing something on her latest smartphone. The photo appeared to be from La Scale, a popular restaurant on Greenwich Avenue, showing mother and daughter with perfect smiles. Next to them, their mother Patricia Anderson was proudly displaying a new designer handbag. "Jenny, let's post that photo too. Along with the announcement for my charity event. I'll have the Round Hill Club members share it as well." Patricia, youthfully dressed in a Ralph Lauren dress, exuded the dignity of a social elite. She served as a board member for local charitable organizations and was active on social media. Together with her daughter Jennifer, she was dedicated to projecting the image of an ideal upper-class family. Upstairs, the household staff worked quietly. Maria, the maid who had served the family for over 20 years, understood the family dynamics better than anyone. She occasionally cast concerned glances at Sarah and Ethan. "Mom, the photos from our upcoming Hawaii trip will be wonderful too. Have you booked the hotel yet?" At Jennifer's words, Patricia nodded with satisfaction. However, a momentary shadow crossed Sarah's face. Due to an important year-end audit, she couldn't join the family vacation and would have to entrust Ethan to her mother and sister. Every time she saw her son's expectant expression, a slight anxiety crossed her mind. Outside the large windows, snow had begun to fall gracefully. The bells of Christ Church Greenwich rang in the distance, pleasantly accentuating the tranquility of this wealthy neighborhood. Maria the maid entered pushing a tea cart. Richard, dressed in a Brooks Brothers suit, seated Ethan beside him and began quietly discussing the family's future. Sarah watched over the weekend family gathering while secretly heaving a deep sigh. Bradley International Airport was adorned with festive decorations, heralding the start of the Christmas holiday. A massive wreath suspended from the departure lobby ceiling gleamed in the morning sun. Despite being before 8 o'clock, the airport was already bustling with travelers. "Ethan, over here. Let's take a photo together," Patricia called out. Elegantly dressed in a Ralph Lauren cashmere coat, she held up the latest iPhone. Beside her, Jennifer was adjusting her two children's outfits. Everyone was coordinated in Christmas colors, creating a scene that could have been straight out of a high-end fashion magazine. "Wow, your new suitcase is so cool," Jennifer's daughter Amy exclaimed. In front of Ethan stood a custom-made Rimowa suitcase, a gift from his grandfather. The deep navy blue body bore Ethan's initials in a subtle engraving. "Thank you. Grandpa picked it out for me." Ethan smiled happily. The boy's eyes, in his Greenwich Academy winter uniform, sparkled with anticipation. His first Hawaii trip with just family members. He had dreamed countless times about the surfing lessons and the Christmas Eve dinner show. Everyone smiled. Patricia took the shot. After capturing the perfect family photo for posting, the group headed to the check-in counter. Linda, a veteran staff member, stood at the luxury airline's first-class counter. Her composed demeanor, cultivated through years of experience, was well suited to handling upper-class clientele. "Good morning. First class to Hawaii, correct?" Linda began checking the documents Patricia handed over. While Jennifer's family's reservations were processed smoothly, when it came to Ethan's turn, her expression clouded slightly. "I apologize, but I cannot locate Mr. Ethan's reservation." Linda checked the computer screen repeatedly. "That's impossible. I made the reservation myself." Patricia's voice held a hint of anxiety. Her fingers, adorned with expensive manicured nails, tapped the counter lightly. "When I checked the system history." As Linda carefully chose her words, Patricia interrupted her. "It must be a system issue. We'll go ahead. Please arrange the next flight." Her voice had lost its usual gentleness. Ethan looked up at his grandmother with a confused expression. "But Grandma, you promised we'd go together." The boy's voice trembled. His grip tightened on the handle of his new suitcase. "Ma'am," Linda said quietly but firmly. "Actually, regarding this flight's cancellation history." "Let's go, Jenny." Patricia interrupted Linda again and grabbed her daughter's arm. Jennifer showed a moment's hesitation but quickly followed her mother. "Mom, just me." Tears welled up in Ethan's eyes. Other passengers were beginning to notice the scene. Everyone was at a loss for words as they watched the designer-clad family abandon a young boy. Linda quietly stepped out from behind the counter and knelt beside Ethan. "It's all right, Ethan. Let's contact your mother." She discreetly began taking notes, recording the date, time, and details of what had transpired as thoroughly as possible. Under the festive Christmas decorations, Ethan stood frozen. Through tear-blurred vision, he watched his family's backs disappear toward the boarding gate. His new suitcase stood beside him like a silent witness. In the taxi leaving the airport, Ethan clutched his mobile phone. Unable to call his mother Sarah, he simply stared silently at the passing cityscape. The driver occasionally cast worried glances through the rearview mirror. As night fell, a knock echoed at Sarah's house door. When she opened it, having just returned from work, there stood Ethan with a tear-stained face, dragging his suitcase. "Mom, they said there was no ticket at the airport. I couldn't get on the plane." The moment she heard her son's trembling voice, something froze in Sarah's heart. In her embracing arms, Ethan continued to cry uncontrollably. Glamorous Hawaiian scenes filled social media timelines. Jennifer's Instagram was updated almost daily. The elegant family relaxing on Four Seasons Maui at Wailea's private beach. Dinner shows at luxury restaurants. Mother and daughter smiling with champagne on a sunset cruise. From every photo, Ethan's existence had been completely erased. "What wonderful memories," Patricia commented. Her social media accounts too were continuously sharing scenes of a perfect family vacation. Meanwhile, in the Greenwich mansion, Richard Anderson was secluded in his study. On the heavy wooden desk lay a letter from the airline. His business instincts, honed through years of experience, signaled something seriously amiss. "Maria, could you come to my study?" When the maid was called in, Richard quietly asked, "Did you notice anything unusual about Patricia and Ethan before the Christmas holiday?" Maria hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Actually, about 2 weeks before the vacation, Madam was looking at some documents in the study late at night. It was unusual for her." Richard's brows furrowed slightly. He picked up his smartphone and contacted an airline executive he knew. "John, I apologize, but there's something I need you to look into." The next day, a fax arrived in Richard's study. It was the reservation history for the Hawaii flight. Ethan's reservation had indeed existed. However, it had been cancelled just 48 hours before departure, under Patricia's name. "Mr. Anderson," a handwritten note from Linda was attached to the last page. "In my 25 years in this profession, I cannot forget the boy's sadness that day. Please discuss this with your family." Richard opened his desk drawer with a deep sigh. Inside was an investigation report he had secretly commissioned. His expression grew sterner as he read through it. Bank transaction histories. Insurance company notifications. Real estate registry excerpts. The facts these documents revealed far exceeded imagination. Ethan's educational insurance. Evidence emerged that Patricia had cancelled it without authorization. The surrender value had been deposited into her personal account. The amount well exceeded the cost of the Hawaii trip. "Why?" Richard's voice echoed in the quiet study. The fireplace flames cast flickering shadows of the documents on the wall. Further investigation revealed shocking facts one after another. Unauthorized asset management by the mother. Evidence that trust funds set aside for Ethan's future had been diverted to investments at Patricia's discretion. Most had been used as a down payment for Jennifer's new investment apartment. Contract with a social media marketing company. Payment of expensive consulting fees to create a perfect family image. Evidence piled up showing that social media appearances had been prioritized over real family bonds. Some Round Hill Club members remembered conversations. Patricia's words, "A single mother's child doesn't fit our class." Important documents had all been copied by lawyers and notarized. Richard had perfectly secured all evidence with help from his long-standing law firm partners. The bells of Christ Church, Greenwich announced dusk. Richard stood and walked to the window. In the garden where snow had begun to melt, he could see overlapping shadows of the day when the family last gathered. James the butler quietly entered after knocking. "Sir, we have confirmed the arrival time of the flight bringing all family members back from Hawaii." Richard nodded and returned to his desk to begin writing a letter. It was a summons for a family meeting to be sent first thing tomorrow morning. An unprecedented sternness seeped through the solemn text. "Tomorrow morning at 10. Gather everyone in this study." As James silently nodded and left, Richard reviewed the documents on his desk one last time. At 10 in the morning, a heavy atmosphere hung over the Anderson mansion's study. Richard sat in a heavy chair before the fireplace, surrounded by 18th-century antique furniture. Beside him stood attorney Michael Bradley. Winter sunlight streaming through the windows illuminated stacks of documents on the desk. "Pardon me. Everyone has arrived." As butler James announced, Patricia and Jennifer entered, showing off their tanned skin. Their elegant air suggesting a luxury resort vacation struck a discordant note with the study's solemn atmosphere. Sarah and Ethan entered next. The boy tightly gripped his mother's hand. "I have important matters to discuss with you all." Richard's voice broke the silence. His tone held none of its usual gentleness. "Patricia, you will answer my questions." Taking up documents from the desk, Richard continued. "Why did you cancel Ethan's reservation? Surely, that's not..." Patricia's voice trembled. "The evidence is here." Richard held up the airline's report. "Cancellation 48 hours before departure. With your signature." The room's atmosphere froze. "That's not all." Patricia's face turned pale as facts were revealed one after another. Unauthorized cancellation of Ethan's educational insurance. Embezzlement of the surrender value. Misappropriation of trust assets. Richard presented each piece of evidence. $500,000 diverted to Jennifer's apartment purchase. Wasteful spending on social media marketing. "Father, I can explain." As Patricia tried to speak, Richard's hand rose. "No explanation needed. I already understand everything." A light tap on the heavy desk echoed. "I even know about your comments at the Round Hill Club. A single mother's child doesn't fit our class, and so on." Ethan drew in a small breath. Sarah's face contorted with anger. "I understand the reasons." Richard walked to the window. Social media appearances. Obsession with a perfect family image. And foolish prejudice about social class. When Richard turned back, his expression showed a severity never seen before. Patricia, Jennifer. I will now pronounce your punishment. As Attorney Bradley took out documents, Patricia began pleading in a trembling voice. Father, please. First, immediate revocation of residency rights. Richard's voice rang cold. Remove all personal belongings from this mansion within 24 hours. James silently nodded, placing cardboard boxes already prepared in the corner of the room. Second, financial sanctions. Bradley supplemented. All credit cards immediately suspended. Complete cessation of living expense support. Immediate repayment of Ethan's insurance surrender value with interest required. Third, complete revocation of inheritance rights. Richard continued. A new trust agreement takes effect today with Sarah and Ethan as primary beneficiaries. Patricia nearly collapsed from her chair. Jennifer stood dumbfounded. And social sanctions. Richard continued speaking. Resignation letters have already been submitted to all charity organization boards. Round Hill Club membership was revoked this morning. The situation has been reported to the Christ Church Greenwich community as well, Maid Maria quietly announced. Expulsion from the Women's Association has been decided. Father, what should we? Jennifer pleaded tearfully. You'll have plenty of time to think, Richard answered coldly. The real estate department has arranged an apartment in the suburbs for relocation. Rent will be paid for only the first 3 months. Is that all? Sarah quietly asked. No, Richard turned to his grandson Ethan. His expression softened for the first time. Ethan, come here. The boy stepped forward to his grandfather. Richard knelt down to meet his grandson's eye level. Ethan, I have something special to tell you. His voice had returned to its gentleness. Starting this spring, I'd like you to receive training at the company on weekends. In the future, you're the only one who can inherit this house and company. Tears glistened in Ethan's eyes. Sarah quietly placed her hand on her son's shoulder. Get out, Richard addressed Patricia and Jennifer again in a cold voice. 24 hours. That's my final mercy. No one saw them off as they left the room with slumped shoulders. 1 year had passed since then, and snow was quietly beginning to fall again in Greenwich's upscale neighborhood on a winter weekend. In the Anderson mansion on Round Hill Road, Ethan sat facing Richard in the study. Now 13, the boy was learning real estate management basics from his grandfather. With income statements spread across the desk, Ethan faced the numbers with a serious expression. You're understanding well, Ethan, Richard nodded with satisfaction. The essence of real estate management is imagining the lives of the people behind the numbers. Weekend training had become precious time for Ethan. His academic performance had improved further, and he was recognized as an honor student at Greenwich Academy. He had also won the state competition in piano. Sarah had been promoted to partner at her major accounting firm and had moved to a new mansion. The modern house in an upscale neighborhood close to Round Hill Road had become a symbol of the mother and son's new life. Welcome back, Ms. Mitchell. Butler James greeted Sarah as she visited in the evening. He continued to serve the Anderson family with his usual dignified bearing. How was Ethan today? Sarah inquired. The young master has truly grown well, James smiled gently. Mr. Anderson's expectations of him as a successor have increased even more. In the study, Richard was explaining a new plan to Ethan. I'm thinking of launching a charitable foundation next year, the grandfather spoke quietly. A foundation to support children who have to give up their dreams for economic reasons. I'd like your mother to serve as the chairperson. Ethan's eyes shone. His trust and expectations for his mother had deepened even more over the past year. Meanwhile, about an hour's drive from Greenwich in the suburbs, Patricia and Jennifer were living transformed lives in a worn apartment unit. Their once luxurious brand-name wardrobes had been sold to pawn shops, replaced by discount store clothing. All social media accounts had been deleted, and their glamorous days as influencers had become a distant past. Mother, I'm going to a part-time job interview, Jennifer announced with a tired expression. Having shifted from being a full-time housewife, she now bounced between part-time jobs. Her husband had decided to divorce her, and she had lost custody of her children as well. Patricia stood silently by the window, gazing outside. The Christchurch Greenwich newsletter had published their actions as a modern-day cautionary tale, sending ripples throughout the community. The price they paid for orchestrating a perfect family image far exceeded their imagination. Designer items forced to be sold. High-value bank accounts closed. Mountains of bills with approaching payment deadlines. Even contact from former friends has completely ceased. Patricia's soliloquy echoed emptily in the stark room. Round Hill Club members whispered among themselves that their downfall was karmic justice. The incident had sparked discussions about true family values among local charitable organizations. The disparity between social media appearances and reality. The foolishness of prioritizing appearances over family bonds. These had become lessons passed down throughout the community. The Anderson Family Trust had been reorganized around Sarah and Ethan. Richard grew more confident each day that his decision to protect family values had been correct. Grandpa, Ethan looked up from his documents. In the future, I want to create a perfect family in the true sense. Not on social media, but perfect in our hearts. Richard nodded deeply at his grandson's words. The fireplace continued to burn with unchanging warmth. Outside the window, snow continued to fall quietly. The bells of Christchurch Greenwich rang from afar. While they tolled as a requiem for those who were lost, they also blessed the bonds of the new family. Maria the maid came to the study to announce dinner preparations. As always, warm meals for 3 were set on the table. Family time together had become something genuine, free from pretense and vanity. Come, let's have dinner as a family today too. Sarah and Ethan nodded at Richard's words. The warm light illuminating the Anderson mansion had now become a symbol of genuine family bonds. In the snow-covered town of Greenwich, one family's story had begun inscribing a new chapter.